Welcome everyone to day 2 of the Rocket Print Mail and Land Insights webinar. Today is mainly about Deb and Rocket Print and how they can help, increase your profitability, touch more people versus other methods, right? There's all kinds of different ways of marketing. Nice thing about mail is that you've got some options on neutral strategy or ranged offers, or blind offers. So you can hit people different ways. You can get much more qualified leads than most other forms like texting or cold calling or even especially pay-per-click. You can really target who you want to hit. You can get some qualification, if you do some pricing strategy. And let's face it, most of us that have been in this industry a while, folks that generally are selling their land, like probably 95+% of those folks are over 50. So a lot of those folks are not super comfortable texting and getting cold calls, but they get a letter in the mail and they're much more likely to reply, especially if there's some sort of pricing. Now, when they reply, you're getting a nice qualified lead. Cool. Anything else to touch on before we dive in, Deb?
I don't think so. I think we'll go over a little bit of the different strategies and we can just get started.
I guess I didn't introduce myself. My name's Peter, by the way. I'm filling in for Ari. He had a personal family matter to attend to today, so I'll be your co-pilot along with Deb today.
Amazing. So thank you for having us. Rocket Print, a lot of the viewers out there know of us or use us. A quick little background is our CEO started the company just over 27 years ago. So we've been around for a while. The really cool thing about the origination of the company is she started as a marketing company. So she started out helping people track results and find the best avenues to market and get the best return on investment. And what happened was about 2 years into it, she was outsourcing so much mail that she started her own mail house. So we are a marketing company at heart. That's where her heart lies. Her own initiative is to help small businesses grow. And that is truly what she speaks and what she follows is she as starting as a small business owner knows the struggles of a small business owner. She also knows the effect of people being so successful has on the economy and others in this world. So she's just really big on helping small business owners. So where that goes is we have all of our own mail and print facilities here, but everything we recommend and everything we help with is something that we've actually accumulated a statistic on or have other cases to back up. So, if you ever talk to me, I do talk general a lot, but it's generalizations based on what I see. It's not just things I've made up. It's really important because, and the other thing we'll talk a lot about too is response rates versus return on investment. Those are two things that are often, especially with new marketers or new people that are doing direct mail, get very confused by. I mentioned it very slightly on Tuesday, but you have to have a response. You can't get any business without response. However, how effective those or how qualified those responses are and what they actually drive, meaning how much sales and the return on investment is much more important. So we really hang our hat on return on investment, but we do track response as well. When you see some case studies that I'll show, you'll see we have both KPIs, but what we really look at is return on investment. So you'll when we get farther into it, because we're going to start with letters, we are going to talk about some other alternative types of mail, when they work, when they don't work, that kind of thing. But what you'll hear when we get into those too is that some of them respond better than a letter, but we don't see the return on investment higher. So just some background on that, but we'll touch on that more when we get into it. The other thing is,
can I give you a little plug for a second, Deb?
Yeah.
So I've been, I did some house flipping years ago. I've done land now for about 2 years, and I've been on the Land Insights team for just over a year. Anyway, all that being said, so I've used several kind of mail houses over the years, and it's been about a year and a half, I think, when you and I first met, Deb, and I haven't looked back. I mean, your team's been instrumental in like giving me feedback on, my copy and my offer letters, giving me feedback on, which envelope to use, whether to do standard or first class, because we were doing some A/B testing. So you guys are not just like, hey, send a list and get mail out. Like, you do have a wealth of information and have really been helping me to fine tune our process and improve our response rates. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's really our goal, is to help people. And so what you just said is really kind of mirrors what we're trying to do. Is that's just it. We're not here just to take your money and get an order. We're here to help you through the process to make sure it's easy for you, but also that it's effective. Because it doesn't do anyone any good if you're mailing and you're not getting the results you expected or you need. So that's what we're here to help with. So we'll talk about, but the really interesting thing is with land, what I found was, and still is, quite honestly, that a lot of people have some templates that are effective and they've been out there for years and years and years, but you'll run into someone who's using the same template they used 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's some really subtle things you can do to just make that letter interface better with the prospect. And we're going to talk about some of those things. But once again, we're here to help with that. We do, we have a full service design team and copywriting. I don't even know how many of them we have now. There's probably 30 people over there in that department. Quite extensive, really large. So to help with those types of things. So if you ever need that service, we can help with that. That's the other thing. We do everything in-house. We do printing, mailing. We do all our online services. We do all our designing. Everything is here. We're on a large campus with multiple buildings, and everything's done. We're at about 400 employees right now. So very well staffed to help. And that's, again, Joy's vision is to be able to help everybody. So we do have, my team is, I think, 9 people that only work on land. So we have 9 people that's all they do is work on land. So if you can't get a hold of me, you can get a hold of someone else. And we have coordinators in production that you can talk to about where your mail is. So there's a lot of services, kind of like you were saying, Peter. We just do a little more than like upload your list and let's go.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Your team's been really instrumental in helping to fine tune, because I can just send you guys like a Word doc or a PDF or whatever of what I think the offer letter should look like. I don't have to make it perfect. It's just like, yeah, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And then your team has been like made it pretty, did the formatting alignments a little better, or moved, made suggestions to move things around. Yeah, it's really nice to have a big team. And with the scale that you guys have too, honestly, when I switched over a year and a half, you guys saved me about 20%. You were roughly 20% lower, about a little less than that, maybe 17% less expensive than the provider I was using right before.
Yeah, we do. That's the other thing. We toot our horn about having the best value and the lowest prices. And there's some other like little hidden things in there that we help save money on. For instance, if you have a service where you upload your list, you're always paying for your raw list count. With us, we process it through this postal software to remove invalids on deliverables. We run NCOA. On average, we see like 10% shrinkage. So with the competitor, you've uploaded the list of 1,000, paid for 1,000 with postage, and they have to do the same thing to be compliant with bulk rate mail. They have to do the same thing. They don't come back and say, hey, 100 of these weren't deliverables, so we're going to give you some money back. So we do the opposite. We charge you for what's actually mailing. That alone really adds up to about 10% savings.
That's great.
Most people don't realize that. But anyway, let's get into this and see what kind of things we can muster up here. I put a few stats in here. It just talks about how long people hang on to mail. 67% receiving direct mail hold on to the mailer for 1 to 2 days, with 46% holding on to it for a week. Now, a lot of you know that people hang on to it for more than a week too. So mail is really a really great way to get your message there. And then those people that are interested, even if they're not ready right now, they'll often, hang on to that letter. They'll stick it in a file, they'll stick it in a book, they'll do whatever.
Put it on the refrigerator.
It's crazy. I had a woman call yesterday or the day before, and she's like, man, I hadn't mailed for a while because I had mailed X amount and I hadn't had anything happen. And she goes, I just had 2 people call me from mail from 3 months ago.
Yep, I've had that same experience. And those are usually the best leads because they've thought about it. They probably talked to a family member or their accountant or whatever. They've had some thoughts and discussions. And then when they finally call a month or 2 or 3 or 6 later, they're very qualified.
Yeah, I actually had one person that said, wow, first they called saying this was like the worst thing I ever did. And do call us if you think that, because we want to help you through it. And I said, well, I kind of warned you mailing that small of a quantity. It was 500. One time is not going to get you anything, And then 6 months later, that person called me and absolutely loved me because a woman out of state owned 2 properties and decided that she needed to unload them. And it was a $60,000 deal. So the guy mailed 500 letters.
Wow.
Was not real happy with me because he didn't get anything off of 500 letters. And we'll tell you up front that that's kind of your a big wish to try to get anything off of 500. But then he called me back 6 months later. I said, well, thank you for telling me, but someone had kept that thing for 6 months. But anyway, this is just to give you some idea of what to expect with letters. They do stay around. People do open them. Another statistic we have here is, and we'll talk about on next Thursday, we're going to talk a lot about online products and way to nurture your leads and to hit people on multi-platforms or multi-channel networks. But this is an interesting thing because the mail, a lot of people say, well, I'm doing email now, or I'm doing Facebook, or I'm doing this or that. What we know is that mail coupled with any other type of platform or media is going to be the best ROI of anything. If you do any of those other products, the non-tangible ones, without mail, they won't perform as well as mail by itself. It's something about that tactical thing, like we just talked about, that they have that they can hang on to. So this is just interesting. It talks about 57% of people who get your letter are going to go to your website. 53 will actually search you online to try to find you. So these are all important things for everyone to understand, because the old way of land is, and tell me if I'm misspeaking, was, you don't want to put your website on there. You want them to call you. You don't want to do that. There's a lot of people out there saying things like that. And it's just a new world we live in, and people want to find out who you are. They want to check you out, and they want to make sure you're reputable. So if if you don't have a website, if you don't have a place for them to actually be able to find you and feel comfortable with you, you're probably missing out on a lot of leads. If they really want to call you, they're still going to call you. And then searched for online reviews.
The big thing in our industry is trust, right? That is the big trigger. If you can gain trust in your letter, in your first call, etc., the faster you can gain that trust is pretty key to converting those leads.
Yeah, that's the one big thing you'll see too with some of the samples and some of the things I'm going to suggest that you change on your letter. It has a lot to do with that. It has to do with making you appear more reputable and more trustworthy. So those are the things we'll talk about. And then it just talks about direct mail versus like emails. So 90% of direct mail is opened, 20 to 30% of emails are open. Emails are great. We do email marketing too, but again, you really, the staple of all marketing for land and most markets is to get that mail out there. This is interesting because we're going to talk about compelling copy, and this has to kind of runs over beyond mail. If you have any kind of messages out there, you want to make sure it's very compelling so you get their attention within a small time span. So they're saying that the average attention span is 8 seconds, which has went down from 12 from 25 years ago, but we're all on our mobile devices and everything. But because of that shortening time span, it's even more important to get out something compelling immediately to keep them engaged so that they want to continue reading or continue watching your video or whatever that action is. You want to make sure you're getting some very compelling copy in front of them right away. Some of the strategies to grab attention are: you want to hook them from the start. You want to know your audience and purpose. You want to keep it concise and clear, and show, don't just tell. So what all that means kind of bundled together is, I always say the first 2 sentences are everything. And so you want to say something that you know they want to hear. And what I tell most of my clients is, if you don't already have one, you should have a frequently asked questions, like on your website, an F&Q kind of thing. If you don't, it's a smart thing, even with your team, even on maybe a quarterly basis, to go through an update, because what it does is it kind of tells you the trends of what people are asking, what they're looking for. And it's such a great tool to have to build copy from. So if you're hearing, if people are saying things like, well, do you go to closing? Are you reputable? Those kinds of things. You should have all those questions written down, and you should have answers for them. And a lot of those are really great to just even publish like on your website. So if someone goes to your website, because those are the things on their mind. But again, then if that's a big thing, like, are you reputable? How does this work? Whatever those questions are, if you can somehow come out of the gate kind of answering that or doing something to get their attention. The other thing is, if you're doing a very micro list, let's just say you're doing a list of people with overdue taxes on their property, then it's often just good to start with something that's going to trigger that. You don't necessarily want to say, I know you owe back taxes, but you might want to say, hey, I've helped people in your community, close on land and help them pay their taxes or something. But you want to position it in a positive note, but getting there, because that list particular is like overdue taxes or past due taxes. So to start out with what you know about that list will help you get their attention quicker. If it's people over 65, maybe you would say, hey, I've helped a lot of people liquidate their land for retirement cash. You might want to say that. So there's different things you can do to position based on the list you're mailing to. I know a lot of guys, I would say the vast majority, don't really micromanage the list down to those types of things. But if you are, it's really smart to market to what that particular list is. If it's subdivides, you should be building copy for just things that are compelling to someone that would want to unload their property at a higher amount. Because often when you guys are going after subdivide property, you're willing to give the fair market value, right? So those are things you could say, hey, I'm really interested in your property and willing to give you fair market value. I have quite a few larger land investors that do that. They're giving market value because they're going to subdivide it and make it, value add. So those are just really good things to do. The show and don't just tell. That's like 5-star reviews, things that you can show on your letter, or even to say, I've helped over 30 people in Floyd County with their land acquisitions, whatever that is, but something that's a statistic rather than just generalizations will help. The big thing with you guys are the reviews. The reviews are really big.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to show how to build out a letter a little bit, just to kind of show this is like a basic letter. It's actually nicer than most of the letters that I do see. The things that make this stand out more than what I usually see is that, first of all, what we just talked about, those first two sentences, we're thrilled to express our strong interest in purchasing your land in, the county and state. But then as cash buyers, we offer a quick and hassle-free process. We handle all closing costs, ensuring you receive your payment swiftly and effortlessly. We wrote the copy on this. But again, so now this kind of takes away some of that, maybe people wondering as far as when you start talking about closing and you start talking about payments, they start thinking these guys are legit, right? So first of all, excitement. I'm thrilled to say I'm interested in your land, and then to say I can get you your money quick and legitimately. So those are those key questions or key entry statements that are going to help get their attention. And then if you look down a little bit, there's some stuff in bold, and that kind of just makes the eye trail go there. So even if they're not super interested, they've now been engaged, and they're at least going to look to that area next. And they'll probably go back and read the whole thing. But it's just, this is laid out very well, has those first couple sentences that get their attention and hopefully answer some of the questions in their mind. And it's just well formatted. You talked about that earlier, Peter, that when you send in a Word doc, they just make it look really nice. Some of those templates out there are they run on and on and on. So this you can actually look at and read. It looks very professional. And again, that's a really important thing when interacting with these landowners, is they want to make sure you're professional. I think back in the day, it was really kind of more came across like I live next door and I want to buy your land, or I live in this community and I want to build a house, that kind of thing.
I used to send those kind of yellow handwritten letter style back in the day. And I mean, they probably still work to some extent, but I think you're right. I think for something like what we're trying to do here, generally, I think that middle ground of professional, but also approachable and personable is a pretty good mix.
Yeah. Those yellow letters got a lot of fatigue. And that's just it. As someone who owns a property, and you were think about that, getting multiple of those a week.
Yeah.
It just took away from this isn't real. Made people really not trust it. Mm-hmm. And I think when they first started using them, oh my gosh, they used them for the house wholesaling, the big, during the housing market crash thing in 2008, and people were getting deals right and left because it did look real. It looked like someone wrote that and sent it to you. And then as everybody else caught on, it kind of, like I said, it just gave it fatigue in the market. The next thing, and this is a really cool thing about Rocket Print, is we, on any of our larger packages, we include free color. If you want free color on your letter, we give you free color. The reason we started doing it about a year and a half ago, was that we had people struggling with responses and when we started doing this, it just turned that around for them. So what it does is, now you have a logo, it looks nice, but it appeals to your senses. Plus it looks like a professional company now. So we also found that, making it very business formatted has really helped with those response rates as well. And then the next thing is, I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but that signature is in blue. So it looks more realistic. It looks like they printed the letter out and they signed it. We have a huge catalog of handwritten fonts. You can pick one that you want, and it's nice for two reasons. It's easy for us to produce, but also you don't have someone trying to copy your signature on anything else. The other thing is then we can carry it over to the envelope. So if you have an envelope, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but if you have an envelope that has an actual addressing on it, we can carry it over. And so it looks very realistic. It looks like it gives it that extra personal touch. So now they've actually taken the time to sign the letter, and it makes them feel like you aren't sending 1,000 or 5,000 of these at once. So it just gives it a more feel like a personal touch, like you actually have the interest in their land. You took the time to figure this out, and you took the time to write this letter. And then the next thing is we offer free QR codes. The QR codes are amazing. They're all variable. And what that means is we take your list and we put a unique ID on each entry on your list, so that when they open the QR code, you can look in your portal and you can see who opened it.
Nice.
It's a soft lead. So you can actually see what individual person opened it. Do we get huge open rates? No. But the thing is, and the thing I hear all the time is that those that are opening, they're getting, they're calling them and they're getting them engaged. So, I've seen 4 on a mailing. I've seen 400 on a mailing. So it just kind of varies. Probably in the market, those types of things that can make a difference on even a response rate. But any lead's a good lead that they had enough, they took the initiative to actually open it. Yeah. So the QR codes are, like I said, we add them to all the land letters at no additional cost. I encourage everybody to do it. I don't think anyone would look at that and say, I'm not working with these people because they have a QR code. The thing that changed it was, COVID. And you talked about earlier, people over 55 or 60 that a lot of landowners are. Everybody uses QR codes now. You couldn't go to a restaurant without knowing how to use a QR code. So since COVID, it's not like age specific anymore. Pretty much That's everybody. True. Yeah. So pretty much anyone who has a handheld device knows how to open a QR code, and it's just an easy way. It sure beats typing in rocketprintandmail.com. So
right.
Now, and the next thing is, I'm going to come back to the QR code, but the next thing is we do in that same, here's the cool thing, because we used a font for that handwritten font for your signature. We put a message that looks like you wrote it. So it says, get a cash offer and find out what your property's worth. Sell with no closing costs. See how. And the little hand scribbled note. So we do that in a lot of applications. I use it for the QR code as well. It looks pretty dang authentic. And what we usually do for that little message is wherever that QR code is taking you. So, if the QR code were going to like an About Us page, you could say, hey, want to find out more about us? Go here. So we make the message applicable to where that QR code's going. So I've had people that say, want to make a counter offer. If they put an offer, this one's a neutral letter, but if they put an offer on there, I've had people say, want to make a counter offer? And they put a thing and it opens to a counter offer capture form. So it's really, adding this little handwritten note is golden. It really is. And that costs no extra either. It's just a matter of us setting it up. And then these are ideas of where you would send people with the QR code. This one says, why choose us? Most people have it go directly to the About Us page. I find that to be one of the best places to send people when they open a QR code, because usually that's what they're looking for. So you can go to an About Us page. Another really cool thing, and on next Thursday, we're going to talk about online products, and I'll show some examples, but you can actually have it go to a YouTube video. So you can have a YouTube video, and they've been super effective when someone's, especially if you can make the video yourself and bring across making it personable, saying, hi, I'm Deb, and I've been helping people with their land for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. And it's this easy, it's usually a very short video, but the videos are really great too. The other thing is if you go to, you can send directly to some type of capture form. I talked about the make a counter offer. That one was a capture form where they could put in their information and put a number. They could put an actual amount to come back to you. So there's some really great things you can do with QR codes as far as pretty much anywhere you can make a URL, you can have a QR code go to. And then this is a really cool one. We're going to talk about postcards in a little bit. We did this on postcards when the texting kind of went south a year and a half ago. We started putting on a postcard something like this, like it would say, Deb, are you ready to find out what your property may be worth? Just scan the code to start chatting with Pete about your deal. And it opens to, like if you have launch control somewhere, it will open to a text message. The neat thing is because the prospect is initiating the text, there's no compliance. We do put on there, this is going to open to a text message and type down below. But yeah, since they open it, they're initiating the text. So there's no compliance.
Makes sense.
You didn't reach to them, they're reaching to you. So this is another really cool thing. I've had people do QR codes to actual DocuSigns. Open this to finalize the offer, things like that, and it opens to a DocuSign. So I've had people that have actually done this on the first page of their letter rather than actually putting a second sheet offer. So you can do this if you have a place, like a DocuSign that it can go to, and then they can see their offer. So there's just some really cool things you can do with QR codes. So these are all things that I highly recommend on letters that don't cost, none of this costs anything additional. These are all things everybody out there can do that can help increase their response rate and their return on investment. And then this is that particular client I said we did the copy for them. We did everything for them. They were brand new. So I always like to tell that because some people go, oh my gosh, that return on investment isn't that great. But you got to realize these are people that had never, ever been in the land vertical ever. And they spent $95,000 on mail, but they actually in their first year made they generated $296,000. To me, that's amazing. I see a lot of people that don't make money the first year. So it just shows a strong hold on these little things, how well they worked, and they're doing very successful now. They reinvested in their marketing and they're doing really well. But it's on average we see return on investments tend to hang around 400%. But that's a hard thing to really share because the guys doing subdivides are in the thousands of percent, and but for brand new people, that's this is really good for someone that had never, they were learning. So you got to figure they lost a lot of leads, that kind of thing. But it just shows that they sent this, they were consistent with it, and they did all of these key things that we recommended, and it helped them actually be positive that first year. And they made $296,000. So they were pretty thrilled for first year land investors making that kind of money.
Yeah. Multiple six figures. That's pretty good in year one.
Yeah. You don't hear it very often. I've listened to a lot of guys that are super successful, and they'll tell the story of their first year. And hardly ever, they're like, I broke even, or I made $10,000, or I almost gave it up, So it's interesting. One of the things to touch on too, and that they did, which was super successful, is they were just consistent. We told them, you have to mail, you have to mail, you have to mail. You just have to keep mailing. And there was at one point, and you could probably attest to this, where they were actually acquiring land, but they were having a hard time selling it. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we should probably stop mailing. We're like, no, you don't want to stop mailing because, and it did happen eventually. Then all of a sudden something clicked and everything was selling. So that's one of the things I hear from new investors frequently is when after they get into it, if you ask them their biggest mistake, often it is that they quit marketing because they had acquisitions and they were trying to unload the acquisitions before they started again. And what happens is it creates a big void. Is when you wait and then you have the transaction and then you try mailing again, it takes a while to fill up that pipeline to get that person 6 months later to call you. So that's one thing we find is that, being consistent, even if it's in small volumes, just mailing every single month, no matter what. And that's the beauty with us too, is we'll help you with that. Like if you're mailing, let's just say you're mailing 1,000 a week and you get very overwhelmed, you can just call and say, let's do 1,000. We'll say, let's do 1,000 every other week. We'll help you figure that out based on, what's going on. Also, maybe you're doing really well and you want to bring on another person. We'll help you try to decide how much more mail do you need to mail to keep them busy. So those are the kinds of things we try to help project for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the partnership between our two companies really bodes well, because our users are reporting, like when we polled them later, they saw a 91% increase in their ROI. So we were seeing people generally, like you said, 400% is pretty typical. But yeah, anywhere from kind of 3 to 8, it was really typical, the range. And they're, after using Land Insights and scrubbing out, finding better markets, scrubbing out like the unwanted properties, that all reduce your mail costs. You're still hitting all the best leads. And so they were seeing almost a doubling of their ROI.
Yeah. Anyone who's listening that didn't get an opportunity to see Tuesday's webinar, it was mainly Rylan going through and showing the tools. And I have to say, I was very impressed by it. You guys have been talking about it, but to see it and that it does all those things that you were talking about. And someone said to me, well, that means they're going to be mailing less. I said, not necessarily. It means they're going to be making more money, doing good deals. They're going to be staying in business. And that's what we're about. We're about people thriving and we want you to do well. If that means mailing less mail, that's fine. But believe me, there's lots of avenues to expand your marketing in as well.
No, we found the opposite to be true, because they were getting a better ROI. They ended up using that money to hire someone to help them so they could scale faster, and then doubling their mail or tripling their mail, because now they know, like, great, I'm getting a 7x versus a 3x before. Like, let's invest more money into this marketing channel and scale our business.
Yeah, it's a big confidence booster to see that big change. Then we're going to talk a little bit about envelopes. I just want to make sure I'm doing okay on time here. So it's been a big topic lately. It's always been a topic, but I don't know. In the last 2 months, we're getting a lot of questions on what other kinds of envelopes can I use. And again, I want to talk about return on investment, because what happened was, here we go with the big C word again. During COVID, the paper mills stopped mass producing like colored envelopes, things like that. And they're technically called what they call as mill items now, meaning they wait until they have enough orders from everybody to put them onto these big machines to make a bunch of them, like 1 million at a time at least. And so what that did was it made the availability harder. So like if you were to call me and say, oh, I want this orange envelope, I'd say, great, we can get it for you in 6 weeks. The other thing is the pricing. The pricing on it is just, and they want you to buy, tens of thousands of them. So and then when you factor all of that in, it's often doesn't offset even though you're getting a few more responses, it doesn't increase the return on investment. You've now doubled the cost of your mailing and without postage, and it really didn't make a change. So I'm really careful when I talk about these things because we want to make sure that you understand, and we're all about test. So we have some, and we'll talk about it. We have some envelopes in stock, and those are the ones we're going to talk about. And we've brought them in large volumes, like hundreds of thousands, to keep the price down for our land investors. And also the availability. You can call me today and say, I want to try a yellow envelope, and your next mailing can be that. You don't have to wait six weeks. This is just talking about direct mail's more effective channel than email and delivers the best ROI, response rate, and conversion rates than any other channels used. I just like to throw in a few facts about them. We'll talk more about the other channels on Thursday, but these are stats that come from third parties. It's not us saying it as well. So I like to share stats with people so they understand that the mail is effective. This is an independent research. Pitney Bowes did this a few years ago. In fact, it's quite interesting because when we started doing a lot of land mailing, which was about 9 years ago, the first thing I said is, why are you guys using these double window envelopes? If you want a higher ROI, you need to use a non-window envelope. Well, there was a weird phenomena going on, just like with the yellow letters, that those double window envelopes were performing with a higher return on investment than the other envelopes. And all I can think, and I've never really have anything in writing to say it, but all I can think is from my viewpoint is that those double window envelopes very much seem like, to me, someone running their own business. Remember how people used to do invoicing, and that way they didn't have to have a return address and address, they could do that. And I think a lot of people thought it was business mail. So I think that's why. And of course they cost less. There's less. It's not that the envelope itself costs less, but there's no addressing or anything else. So it helps with the cost. So when you can mail it a lower per piece and get the same kind of response, it makes sense to do it. But anyway, Pitney Bowes, their extensive research showed that the best responding envelope is one that is not a window, has a handwritten font, has a live stamp, and it outperforms any other type of mail. Now, again, that's a generalization based on their studies. And like I said, when I first got deep into land 10 years ago, that was not true at all. I've seen a shift, and I think the shift is because of the amount of competition in the space. In the land space compared to what it used to be. There was, I don't want to say there wasn't any competition, but there was very little. And now there is competition. But it's nothing like with the house wholesaling or flipping. So people who get afraid of the competition's good. It creates more interest. It gets people who have been holding on to those pieces of land forever. They're getting interfaced with people asking, pushing those little buttons. Wouldn't you rather have the cash? Do you that kind of thing? And so the more competition heightens interest, which drives more deals. So don't be afraid of competition. If anything, it just makes you better at your game. But the other thing is, it's nothing compared to what like the house flipping and wholesaling is. You want some competition.
Not even close, yeah. not only that, but mail is such a timing thing, and especially in land. I mean, they might have gotten a letter the day before, but yours hit the day when they just had a discussion about the kid going to college and they need 10 grand for tuition, whatever it is going on in their life. A lot of it is timing.
Yeah, and that's where the online we'll talk about on Thursday, that's where it really comes in, because it's a way to stay in front of those people between mailings. When I first started in the land market, people would mail to a list once a year, maybe. And then it tightened up and people were mailing like every 6 months. I'm seeing people now mailing to a list every 3 months. So I think that differs too. Some people have markets that don't allow them to mail more mail, so they just have to repeat the lists they already have, but a lot of it has to do with the competition and staying out there. And there's just some smart ways to do that without having to remail your list that frequently. But that has changed too. The frequency of when you should mail. That's another question we're getting a lot lately is how often should I be mailing to this list?
Yeah.
And my answer usually is, how is it performing first? Yeah. How did it perform the first time out? If you didn't get any response the first time out at all, let's look at some other things before we start mailing to it again. There's a lot to it. It's not just a cut and dry answer. And like I said, it really is driven by the market, the competition, and then the list itself. With your new list, I think they're going to find that they can mail confidently to a list quicker and get more action, rather than these big lists that people have that have the flood zones and all the land that you don't want to acquire. And it's so costly too, with the postage at 43 cents is just so costly.
What was the, you're probably going to talk about it. So yeah, I was going to ask, what was the end result? Where did the verdict lie lately? What's the best envelope? It looks like you're getting into that.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer your question though. What we're finding now is it used to be that these double windows that are up right now outperformed the regular windows. They're pretty neck and neck now. However, I'm feeling like the other ones are starting to take an edge over these based on some results we're seeing. And when we get to them, I'll kind of point out why. And I've kind of touched on it a little bit. But these are the standard double windows that not everyone, the vast majority of land investors use. The one on the left is an indicia. That's probably 95% of the people that use this. But you can also, to give it a more personal touch, you can put a real stamp on it. Now, the real stamp is still the same postage as the indicia. It's the 43 cents. And it does add cost. It costs 2 cents to actually adhere it onto the envelope. So it does add a little cost, but some people really like this. I haven't seen that it's changing the results, but the people that are using it really like it and feel like it does. And then these are just, some people put taglines on their envelopes, that cash offer inside. I tell people to be cautious about that, and that's something you'd want to test in some smaller quantities, maybe 1,000. Red is a color you have to be careful about. Like, this is perfect, cash offer inside, but you want to be careful that it's not saying something like third notice, things that are going to make people feel like, especially if you have to, again, you look at that audience. If you're marketing to someone like tax delinquencies, those kinds of things, and you put final notice on there, they're not going to open it. They're going to think, oh, it's another person coming after me for money. So you have to be very careful with taglines. We had some really great results off of the cash offer inside, but it's kind of cooled down again too. But it's something we can do. And especially if you have a particular list that that if you put something on there that would make them open it, that's something we can do as well. The other thing that's a lot of people do is because the letters we give the free color, they'll put their logo in color in the window. So it gives it that professional look. So that's another thing we can do. Okay. And then these are the non-window. And this is what I was talking about a little bit, is that the only difference is the one on the left has the black ink. The one on the right has blue ink. They're both bulk rate stamps. The post office changes them out. There's no really controlling what kind of stamp you get on there when you're paying bulk rate. But see, again, when I was talking about the signature on the letter, now you can have that same font in that same blue ink on the letter. So that coupled with the letter, I know it's kind of edging a little bit over what the double windows are performing right now. So when you couple them, it helps. And again, Pitney Bowes said this is what works. This is what gets people to open them. One thing they say not to do is don't put your company name. So you'll see one says Michael Robertson, the other one has a P.O. box. They do say you should put your name, but you don't have to. But you should. They say do not do a company name for this. The whole idea behind this is that it's a personal communication. And when you start putting a company on it, and especially if they're getting, I hate to say it, but if they're getting a lot of land mail and you say, I buy land, they're going to say, oh, it's another one of those land guys. So it's better off to use a name, even if it's a pseudonym or whatever, pseudonym. But yeah, you can use a name of some type. Most people use their real names, but I do have a few that do have names that go along with their LLCs. And then these are just showing.
What are your thoughts about looking professional, even from the double window standpoint, from the envelope, building trust? I feel like, and I could be wrong, and maybe it depends on what value property you're going after, whether it's a 10K kind of more desert square versus, a 40K, $200,000 property. My gut says, and I could be wrong, it's just my gut, but my gut says I want it to all speak professionalism, where if it looks like a handwritten envelope, they open it, there's almost this disparity between, wait, are you professional or are you handwriting me a letter?
Yeah, I think, you know what? Everybody perceives what they see differently. And so I think, changing it up isn't a bad thing either, because but you're right. When you're trying to be professional, the double window does come across stronger that way. And that's probably why it's still tracking as well as this. Because like I said, it's usually a big disparity between the regular envelope and the window, meaning the regular envelope usually way outperforms. And this is like tracking with it, if not slightly above. And that might be why, because the double window does have that professional look to it.
Yeah, and maybe mixing it up. Now that I'm thinking about it, you should be remarketing every so often, so maybe mixing it up. Do a professional, then do one, but maybe inside of this should also be slightly different copy where it's a little less professional, a little more personal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's, I mentioned it earlier, we're big on testing, so we do that. We'll do an order with the double window, and we'll do half the order with the regular envelope, and we'll just test them and so we can see the results. Or you can see the results. And this is just showing this is a green envelope. Again, I have never seen the colored envelope outperform a white envelope. And when I say that, it's when it all flushes out. People will often say, oh, I got a lot more people calling off the green one. But then now when you paid 7 cents each more for the green and you flush everything out, it's just one of those things. So you want to test them. But it is an idea, and it's something that's out there. I know right now we have yellow on the floor, so we have yellow ones if people want to try them. So I just like to put that out there. And then I prefer, over doing a colored envelope, going to the 6x9. Have you seen these before, Pete?
Yeah, we used these for a little while. I didn't see any major difference at that time. Maybe there is now, but we went back to regular.
Yeah. So that's, to me, before you go to a color, because these blue 6x9s, it's crazy. They're like 17 cents more. To me, that's just like, there's craziness. But I wanted to bring it up so people know they're out there and understand why people don't use them, as well as they are there to test. Now, the 6x9s, that's something we have the blue ones on the floor too, but the white ones we buy a lot of, like $500,000 at a time. So those only cost like 3 cents more if you want to try them.
Bad,
yeah, that's not bad.
And again, if I were going to do a campaign like that, I probably would make it almost like a card style inside that says, hey, this is your personal invitation to sell your property for cash or whatever, something like where it matches the envelope style. Like I wouldn't want it super professional inside if the outside looks less professional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the whole idea for the 6x9 is, think about when you physically carry your mail from the mailbox.
It stands out. Yeah,
it sticks out. You tend to pull it out first. So that's really, it's a whole tactical thing. It's really not a visual thing, I think, with that. And then I just want to show a couple other really cool things. And we have both of these envelopes in stock too. But we've had people where we've done the aerial view, the Google aerial view of the property. A lot of the list tools now allow consumers or the end user to download these things. But anyway, we can show it through that window, and then it gets addressed in the white blank area below the stamp. So that gets people's attention too when you get a physical mailer that has your property or area view on it.
How would they send that to you on like their CSV, or how do they get this specific photo to this specific property? What's the best way to do that for Rocketprint?
Let me get back on that, but I do know there's two things. We can actually do them, but the ones I've really liked are the ones that have came from list companies, and they've actually had in a field, they have the latitude, longitude. They have a link in the field, in a separate field on the actual list. Right. So that's what I've seen that works best. Or I shouldn't say it works best. It just it's more accurate or something, because we use Google aerial views, and they're good. I just don't think they're as good as the property data ones that come to us.
Gotcha. Yeah, we do both. On our exports, we have both the latitude, longitude, as well as the KML. So there's probably a way to.
Let me get back to you on that, because I think we can take the latitude, longitude, and download it. I think I've done that with some people. Nice. And then the next one's just a brown craft that we keep. It looks very business formatted. It's very expensive. I've had people use these, and we have them in stock, ready to go. What I recommend they be used on are high value properties. You don't want to be. It depends on what you're upgrading from, a window envelope or a non-window, but on average they're about 25 cents each more. But if you have 500, let's just say you have 500 hot leads that you've never been able to get a hold of, use it for something like that. If you got some big subdivides that you just haven't been able to get through to, like I said, high value or very hot leads, I would use them for, because the cost of them is just too much to be doing major mass mailings of them.
That's great.
Yeah, but they do come across, they look like they came from the post office, like someone did a certified mail. And then just 9x12 envelopes, people ask about them. The big thing is the postage on these are crazy. It's between $1 and $1.50. So once again, if you're going to use the big format that a flat sheet of paper fits in, absolutely, but you want to be sending those to like high value leads, like hot leads, or like I say, properties that are worth a lot of money to you to get their attention. And then we do have these urgent envelopes too. They're not the 9x12. That picture makes them look. They're 6x9. The beauty of those, they can go first class for, I think postage just went up. I think it's 72 cents, because they have to go full rate first class. Same thing with these though. Maybe it's someone you talk to. Yeah. You're really interested. You can't get them back on the phone. That's what I use these kind of things for.
Absolutely.
And then a couple quick. I know we're running out of time here. Just a couple other quick things. Postcards in general, we find work best as a follow-up. They're not received as well as a letter on the definitely not on the first outing. Mainly because they don't come across as reputable. I always talk about think about your own mail. Think about mortgage companies, banks, credit card companies. How often do they send you a postcard?
Right.
It's a financial instrument. It's someone's investment that you're talking about. And I said those market segments have been doing marketing for decades, and they know postcards are not as effective. So it falls in line with the land as well. But they work really good for a follow-up. There's always that, we talked about it a little bit earlier, is that the perception, like I respond better to a letter. Other people might respond better. You might have people in your household that would pick up a postcard and read it and say to you, "Hey, Pete, did you know we could sell that land? So you might have, there might be someone else in the household that would be more likely to look at that and start a conversation than open a letter, or especially if the letter's not addressed to them. Where I find them super effective is, let's say you try a new market and it was like amazing. You can get a postcard out with first class postcard rate, which is about the same as a standard letter, and they deliver in like 1 to 3 days. So let's just say for some reason you want to get back out in that market like quick, and you've already sent them a letter, works really well for that as well. And then, in general, they can work well. This particular one, it's not a land investor, it's a broker. So these numbers are a little not great, but I just want to show the colored card. The next one is an investor. They did an urgent notice like this, and this did really well. Not great, but it did well. But I wanted to show we do them. We are more than glad to test them for you. But in general, we find that, you're better off with a letter. You guys have negotiated such great prices for the letters too. Back in the day, postcards were so much less expensive than letters. That's not true. In fact, that's the number one thing. When someone calls in saying to me, hey, I might want to try a postcard, and I give them the prices, they're like, why would I do that? It's only like 2 cents less than a letter. And I said, I know. So people have, the thing is, the old traditional postcards that don't have variables, like variable means like, I want to buy your property at. The old kind that just say, I want to buy your property, they can, if you mass produce them and just put them on a shelf and then address them, they can be affordable, but they are not personalized. They don't respond well. So that's what people were used to, is back in the olden days, what we call static postcards. And then it's just a saying around here, you can't use creativity. The more you use, the more you have. So we like to think of it that way. And then just a couple quick other follow-up things. We do check mailers. There's a competitor out there that just tells everybody to use check mailers because they have the greatest response. They do. They will get you a response, but the ROI on them is pretty dismal. And we use them for ourselves. Like if you've ever received one, we'll say, $150 off your next offer or whatever, and you just get people calling wanting $150. They don't even realize that it's supposed to be towards your next offer. I have to tell this silly story because I love it. We had one guy call. It was actually a woman. It was a bank teller. Call us, and we're like, yeah. And she's like, well, I have this gentleman here, and he's trying to cash this check. It was really silly, but there was actually a man at the bank, an elderly man at the bank, trying to cash his offer at the bank. And she put him on the phone. I had to talk to him. But I always tell the story so people understand what kind of response you get. It definitely gets people wanting to call, but it's not necessarily for the right reason. And this is just showing one that we have that is somewhat successful. And when it's converted to a snap apart, it looks like this when it comes in the mail. So it's a little intriguing. That check mailer does work a little better. Just they tend to get opened, and that's really what the hour's over. I did pretty good staying in here. Do you have any questions, Pete, or does anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just reading through the chat. Just should we do a couple? I know we're bumping up on time here, but maybe I'm just looking at a couple. Someone asked, who was that? There we go. Oops, it keeps moving on me. There we go. Oh, Ari. Is that really Ari? Asked what size would the letter be in a 6x9 envelope, and it's the same size. It's folded in half, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
You're hired.
Yeah. Well, now I got a second career. If I need it, I'll call you. I'm just kind of going through. Mark asked, what about building the font? I'm not sure what he was talking in relation. If you want to clarify that question, Mark, give us more context.
So in that letter text, it did show the font bolded on call now. There were like 3 or 4 things. It really does help with, if you have a compelling first couple sentences, it's a really good way to get the eye trail to go to the action item right away. So it does work. You don't want to put it all over. You don't want to have words here, here, here. You want it to be so it's an eye trail. So your eye goes to that segment. So doing it for a random word isn't really the best way to use it, but to have like action items and have the bullets.
I agree. Like we do blind offers, so we put the offer amount and that little paragraph of, hey, we're looking to buy your property for this amount, etc. That part we kind of put in a color and bolded, like near the middle of the letter, so that catches their attention. Mark also asked something about KPI for older sellers. I'm not sure exactly what you mean there either, but generally under 50, there's just less likelihood of them selling at a discount. Also, people that bought more than 5 years ago are more likely. So I scrub out folks under 50 and folks that haven't, that purchased the property more than 5 years ago. That seems to help with the KPIs.
I saw something about a linen envelope. Again, it's kind of like those very special envelopes. I would use it, especially if you're trying to reach a high value property owner, but more of a one-off, like you actually wrote the letter. Linen envelopes are expensive. And then they don't look, and then if your letter's not linen, I just don't think we've had people do it and it just didn't respond well. But I think at a one-off personal level out of your office, like someone that you talk to and you can't get a hold of, absolutely. If you go down and buy a little ream of them, perfect, because they are very professional. But just the expense isn't, you're not going to see the response versus the expense. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. And I'm not sure where we're going to put this, but just to tease everyone, just so you know, because I'm not, again, I'm kind of filling in for Ari today, so pardon me. But I know we're doing a promotion of 25,000 credits in our system, which equates to either a bunch of free exports or you can also use them for skip tracing. And that gets doubled if you decide to work with both Rocket Print and Land Insights. So we'll tell you more about like the pricing and promos probably in a future one, right, Deb? Is that the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing for anyone new who wants to do our entry level 5,000 piece package, we're doing $300 off, which includes that's the color. So it's usually $1,350, so it's $1,050. Anyone who wants more than that, they get the free color, which that's a value of between $750 and $4,200, depending on the quantities. So nice. We're doing that. And then when we get into the online products, we're going to offer 20% off of those. But if anyone needs them,
okay, great.
So we're doing some specials too. So we have the rocketprint.com Land Insights. That's a landing page that has the 15,000 and more sale package prices with the free color in there. If you just want to snoop around, otherwise you can always call us. That's the other thing. We give free consults. So if you're currently a client and you don't have color, give us a call. We'll upgrade your order to free color on the letter. That's something I can do for you as well.
I can attest to that. You guys did that for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know a few people asked about replays. We will be sending out replays. Sometimes it takes a while for them to download, and then we want to format them, etc. So, give us a day or two, something like that. You'll all get emails with the replay links.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people asking about that.
Yeah, well, those are good questions. Yeah. That means they're interested in the content, right? Well, I know we went a bit over time. So any last minute parting words, or should we end it here?
I think I'm good. The other thing, though, I know that was mentioned on Tuesday is there is a link on the registration form for Land Insights if you guys want a free demo, one-on-one demo, especially if you might have missed Tuesday. I know that's there for you as well.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the reminder. I meant to put that in the chat earlier just in case.
Yeah, I was just so impressed by that demo. By what I saw, that I think if anyone's interested in getting, more information, it's probably a really great resource.
I put the URL in the chat there. It's just landinsights.co/apply. I'm doing that by memory. Pretty sure that's right. If not, if you just go to landinsights.co, there is a button near the top of the page there to book a demo. There's no pressure on those. Anyone that's spending roughly, I'd say, what's a good fit for Land Insights? Anyone spending around $1,000 or more, which, as you know, that's not a ton of money. But if you're spending at least around $1,000 or more, you'll see the ROI makes total sense to look at Land Insights.
Is that a month or a year?
Sorry, per month, yeah.
Cool.
So that would be roughly what, maybe 1,500 mail or something like that per month on average, depending on what they're doing. Awesome. Well, Deb, really good stuff. I learned a lot today. I took some notes. So I'll be talking to you and your team about some of the things you shared. I might try a couple of these other methods just to see how it affects our response rate, or maybe I'll do some A/B testing on some of the medium or larger campaigns. Split them in half. Absolutely.
Test.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining, you guys. Appreciate it. And we'll be back on. We got 2 more coming, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So part 3 and 4 to come. Check your emails. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good rest of your day.
You're serious about flipping land for predictable profit, and you want to plug into the exact system our students are using to close their first deal or their next 10 deals, then tap the video right here. It's a free 15-minute strategy call where we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the exact LIA system that our students are using right now. We'll show you the entire process A to Z on how you can start landing deals in the next 90 days or less. Slots tend to fill up fast. Grab your spot now. And I look forward to showing you the exact LIA land flipping playbook that I've been using for the last 6 years and that nearly 500 other LIA members have used today. Click it and I'll see you inside.